Hello, Guardians. Dragon back here again. Today we are going to be covering a bit of a theory I had. We are looking currently at the Traveler over the last city from some beautiful concept art and whatnot from Bungie. I pulled images from Bungie's Wikipedia page, but just something I wanted to bring up this season is very much a season based on science, a lot of AI, everything else. Clovis is acting a little funny. Granted, he's got a god complex, but I had a theory about why he was driven to that point. What actually pushed him there? And as we look at this picture here, I want you guys to kind of really look close at the rings of the last city here. If you notice, the rings for the walls are broken, like several parameters out in this image. Um, Also, obviously, the traveler is in the atmosphere and out of the atmosphere at the same time. That's something we're going to be talking about. So, with that being said, I'm going to real quickly flip over to this image. We've all seen this image from the Forbes for Destiny 1. Um, the Traveler initially was supposed to kind of be the big bad, and it was supposed to be a big reveal. And I honestly wonder if Bungie never really got away from that. And here's why. Um, The Traveler is a very large celestial body, obviously running in fear from the darkness and whatnot. The Traveler would be not necessarily thinking clearly. I don't know if you've ever been scared by anything and ran away from it. Usually you don't make the greatest decisions. But here in this image, we're going to be taking a look at this too. Notice the positioning of the Traveler toward to the Earth in this image. It's a great picture of just for reference for the Traveler in relationship to the Earth. He's very close. I'm going to use he as a gender here, just for lack of a better term. It's very close. Um, but what I want to talk about here with all this is what the impact of the Traveler's arrival would have been. If you guys have seen a disaster movie recently, I know Moonfall just came out. It in science, it's been determined that the moon's orbit is very particular to the effects on the tides. Even tectonic plate shifts are affected by the distance of the moon from the Earth to a certain extent. Um, and of course, you can look up science on tidal shifts and whatnot. It's the moon's closer, you get high tide. Farther away, it's low tide. We all know how tides are basically a big deal. Now, I want you to think about this. Traveler's running, not making a lot of big smart decisions. Yes, it's probably a quantum entity, capable of billions of calculations at once, but even if it moves through the universe using anti gravity and not some kind of other propulsion, probably not making a lot of clear decisions here and how relationship to Earth's 1G of gravity would be affected by its anti gravity field. This also is very large object, and what we can find out here from all this is tidal shift will be a problem. Tsunamis, earthquakes. The Traveler landing on Earth would have probably been cataclysmic. Now, the distance you can see the Traveler from the surface of the planet, we've already covered it. He's very close. It's very close. It's within the atmosphere. So, what is that? 100,000 feet? It's probably closer to 30 over the last city. I mean, realistically, it's probably where about modern airliners fly. Is where the bottom of the Traveler is currently hovering over the last city. And I wonder if we can see the effects of mass earthquakes, flooding, and stuff inside the game, and it's just been kind of glassed over. Now, the reason I bring all this up is I honestly never hear anybody talk about this, and especially with this season being so rooted in science, um, we have this very interesting opportunity to kind of go back and we don't get we get lore cards, right? We get the Cryptarchs, the Speakers, the Vanguard, Clovis, Rasputin. These are the people telling us about the history before the collapse, you know, before the Golden Age. Now, when the Earthlings first landed on Mars in Destiny 1 in the beginning of the game, the planet was very stable. Obviously, Mars, the Traveler, had been there a while. Any damage that they'd caused had stabilized. The same thing we see with Io. There's a very definitive landing zone. Also very close to the planet, mind you. Um, Venus in Destiny 1. All these areas are very topographically uprooted, we should say. Even Nessus today. Yes, the Vex have taken over a lot of Nessus, but it does bring up an interesting point. Now, the Cosmodrome in the game, and I'm going to try and switch over real quick to the game. See if I'm still standing there. So give me just a second here. In the game, in the Cosmodrome, we see these broken highways. Okay? This is basically where we spawn as a Guardian. Obviously, there's still some enemies out here. But we see the wall and everything, but we're seeing a lot of broken concrete, a lot of broken roadways, but there's still portions of the bridge that are there. Now, granted, over centuries and time, these things would break down. But the signs are still there. If you ever lived in, like, Missouri or someplace that's very humid, the south of the United States, certain places, things rust. You know, we see it here in the cars. The cars are rusted. The street signs are not. So it brings up this interesting point of where does this stuff play out at? Where is was this a sign of an earthquake, the mass panic? Now, as far as the evacuation, we go back and we see the Exodus evacuations. We see the Traveler is here, but everybody in their right mind from this showing was trying to get off planet. Why? Why did we need to expedite our exploration of other planets based on the Traveler? Now, we were getting the knowledge. We had, the ability to build these ships. Sure, Manifest Destiny. People want to go out and explore. This is not exploration or anything like that. This isn't even the aliens landed and we gotta escape the planet because we can't fight. As obviously we see with our firearms that we have here, they're modern weapons. They're basically bullets. I mean, yeah, they're infused with energies and whatnot, but they're still bullets. So bullets would have worked on the alien species, the Fallen, the Hive, stuff like that would have been coming to the planet. So why the mass exodus? There's, I think, if I counted right, 11 exodus ships here. These are huge colony ships. These are full-on colonization, and these would have been built once we started going through the aspects of Mars. And I love the sky around here because the Traveler's little ray things are always all around, but you can never really see the Traveler. But this was an escape. This was mass panic. And I think a lot of it may have to do with my theory that when the Traveler came to Earth from Mars and the darkness started coming and we started finding out about this stuff, the aliens started showing up, everything else, when the Traveler landed on Earth and got too close to the atmosphere, it messed the tides up. It caused cataclysmic earthquakes. Now, another thing to point out with this, and this is kind of very important for the point here. We'll go back to the slideshow is the Traveler. We'll put up the new image from the Seraph Station because this actually is part of what my highlight point is. Would have been coming here. People would have been panicking, right? So we have the last city, the last safe city, as it's called. Now, the last safe city doesn't really hold true for the Guardians out there. You know what I'm talking about. The Cabal invaded during the Red War. Scourge of the Past, the Outbreak Perfected mission in the tower with the Fallen. There is fallen weapons of war that were bigger than tanks inside the city. The Vex can transmat anywhere at any point in time. I mean, the Fallen, Cabal, we've all seen them spawn and transmat in and out with relative distance to a cache. Why is it called a safe city? If the aliens could get in at any point in time and actually could store weapons inside the city that were detrimental to life in the city, why was it called the safe city? The walls are broke down. Yes, the Traveler's here, but this doesn't make a lot of sense for the concept. This safe city. What makes it safe? Well, with all the fan theories out there, a lot of people say that, I mean, Evase, all these guys have theorized that the Traveler is sitting in a city that's in a valley at a super high elevation somewhere in South America or wherever. Honestly, Bungie doesn't want us to know, or they would have told us. So there's not really a big concern with where exactly the Traveler is located. I personally don't care. If they want to tell us, they'll tell us. But it's a big deal for a lot of people to know where the city is. Obviously, this kind of geographic area, like in South America and the Andes, would make sense. The mountain ranges would have protected from the incoming tsunamis, the large tidal waves, the volcanic eruptions, whatever you want to call it, from the Traveler's arrival on the planet. And I think that holds a lot of merit here. If we look at the concentric circles, and I'm going to use this image because it's actually a really good lighting contrast for what I'm talking about. We go down and we look just to the right of the Traveler. We see the ring, and then we see the break, and there's another ring. And that series of rings looks broken down. Now, the other thing is these are concentric circles. If you're going to stop a invasion force, a round barrier would probably not be the best choice. If you were trying to stop massive millions of gallons of water and cause it to divert around a specific area, a square would be a bad choice. A flat surface would be a bad choice because it would break down. Concentric circles would allocate that this was to stop water flow, to strengthen defenses. We see the same thing in the Cosmodrome, in the gameplay area. The walls are curved, almost like it was meant to stop a mass flood. Now, these things really do not add up. Now, another thing that doesn't add up here is we see in various cutscenes and backlogs with the Vanguard, Zavala, stuff like that. We were in the Golden Age, right? We had technology beyond reason. That all of a sudden there was the collapse. It's always been referred to as a collapse. And I think it was a catastrophe of cataclysmic proportion. Like, literally, the Traveler landing on Earth screwed everything up. So, we have Golden Age tech. We always talk about the Golden Age tech, stuff that was pre the collapse. Rasputin, Clovis Bray, his AI cores, some of the exos. We have all this tech. Well, that's great. We also know that the Traveler didn't start creating Guardians right away. They bring up on the lore cards that it was there was a day and the Traveler opened up and all these little lights came out and these were the ghosts. It wasn't immediately at landing. It wasn't like as he was on, as it was on its way, it was dropping ghosts across the planet. It's always been established that the Traveler had done this to protect itself sometime probably around the time that it just you pushed the darkness back the first time. Once it decided to settle and it was tired of running. Um, so that brings up an interesting point. We have all this technology. The last city is lit up like a Christmas tree. We've got jump ships of every shape and size. We have interstellar communication, teleportation. We have all of this really high-end Golden Age tech. But if we remember back to when Zavala was in Season of the Haunted, and even before, walking through the Guardian camps, even Fellwinter's Peak with the Iron Temple, we see this Middle Age, almost like Middle Ages, 13th century, living in tents, nomadic, tribal mentality from people. The Guardians, the Warlords, the Iron Lords, all these different groups and factions are moving around, and they are dealing with, okay, we've managed to find firearms, we know how to use these, but a lot of the times, Zavala originally was crossing the wastelands with a stick. And he had a spear, basically, at one point in time. So we lost a lot of technology there. So who's giving us the technology? In Destiny 1, remember, we woke up the Warmind in the Rasputin area over in the shores. We woke up the Warmind. At that point, communication with the Warmind didn't exist. I imagine Anna was out there doing some stuff when she woke up. She was pretty smart. But we've always learned Guardians and the Resurrected don't have a lot of memories of their past. Obviously, you have some of the Exos like Elsie and etc. that would have remembered this, Clovis. But the realistic point of the matter is here that Guardians would not know how to fix the hydroelectric dam in the EDZ, how to keep the arc field generators running in the Cosmodrome to give us power when we're traveling through various areas and opening up satellite arrays and turning on all this power. We've gotten human beings down to skeletons from decay from the collapse, laying all over the game, especially on Earth. I mean, even on Nessus, we have this. What did Failsafe say? 400 plus years she'd been stuck on Nessus. So we know getting to Nessus takes some time. And we know all this other stuff happens. So here's the thing. Who's fixing this stuff? Who's keeping a hydroelectric dam running for, let's call it 1,000 years, for argument's sake, when most of the Guardians were living in tents, the hydroelectric dam being in the Trossland, providing power to that area, the spillway still working properly. And even the Trossland, right when you get in the landing zone, if you look, there's roads that should have bridges that run across that waterway and that river. They're not there. There's no evidence there was a bridge there. The road just ends in a cliff. So a mass flood, tsunami, in low-lying areas like river valleys would have been perfectly logical to the point of washing out bridges, roads, sections of the Trossland, even sections of the Cosmodrome. And honestly, I think that's the key. I think the Traveler's arrival was more catastrophic than anything else. And honestly, Clovis descending into madness. Yes, Clovis was a monster. We're not going to argue that. The experiments from the war cards, the stuff we're learning from Rasputin, the stuff Elsie's told us, even Anna, the way he behaves with Rasputin. Clovis is not on the up and up. But if Clovis was a Golden Age scientist, when the Traveler was on Mars and established his company on Mars, and then the Traveler moved to Earth and he's seen the devastation on Earth, that could have caused a mental break. The creation of the War Minds, the, end game to destroy the Traveler if it tried to move again, or, whatever. In the pursuit of, obviously, he wanted all the knowledge and power, and he has a God complex, but he'd seen the devastation of the Traveler arriving in a world that was inhabited because of, it's literally a moon messing with the tides and the tectonic plates and everything else, and then coming up to let's say 30 to 50,000 feet above the ground and coming to rest well within our atmosphere and just sitting there. Now, like I said, the anti-grav field's a possibility. I don't think it would have been in effect when he landed. When the Traveler landed, I don't think it would have been in effect. I think it would have been something that would have been in a retro. It's also possible there's the other option. The anti-grav did the exact same thing as a moonfall because you're at negative g-force and you're descending onto a positive g-force, and it creates another gravitational field. Every massive celestial object has some sort of gravitational field. People have gravitational fields. They're not very strong, but they do have them. So, something the size of the Traveler would be definitely having a gravitational issue. So my biggest thing here is who remembers how to maintain this tech? Clovis has been locked up on Europa, fighting the good fight on Europa, and would have been somebody that would have been available to maintain tech. However, on Earth, by the time, when did they come back? You send exos to Earth. When did those exos come back and bring people out of essentially the Dark Ages? The Dark Ages. They brought them out of the 13th century, living in tents, running constantly, hunting for food. Brought them into the point now we have ramen stands and restaurants and all this other stuff. And we're learning about a lot of this culture. We would have lost in a cataclysm of any way, shape, or form. So you have to bring back some of the tech, and maintaining and updating technologies. The Traveler obviously could act as a power source for the last city, the last safe city. But we've also seen stuff of images of Zavala and Shax and all these people building the walls brick by brick in some of these scenes. They're building buildings in the last city brick by hand. Yes, they're guardians. They are immortal. They can strain themselves further than other people, sure. But even so, it doesn't make a lot of sense. And the other thing that doesn't really sit well with me here, this will be kind of my last point, the last city is the only place on Earth with a large conglomeration of human population. See, this doesn't mesh. The warlords from the Iron Lords eras and the Dark Ages, we've already seen Soraya and Devram. Even the people out at the farm outside the EDZ. survivability on the rest of the planet is possible. People would not necessarily get tired of, but maybe a group of guardians went out to settle a new area, took some people with them, or picked some people up that were living in the wilds and started their own community. Who's to say we don't have another city that's not where the traveler is functioning that we haven't seen? That there's not a city of equal size. Remember, at current time, in this world today, the population on the planet is somewhere in the neighborhood of 8 billion people. Now, a global cataclysmic event, which due to the way the bodies and people inside the vehicles inside the cosmodrome are strewn across and everything else from some kind of massive seismic, catastrophe, an apocalypse level event that had nothing to do with the Fallen or the Hive or the Vex or the Cabal. The people that lost their lives would have been or show the signs of being trapped, being wiped out by a mass flood and being trapped in their vehicles, whatever. So it's just an interesting concept and theory that the traveler may still be not always on the up and up. I think I'm going to leave it there, and I want you guys to think about that. Throw me down a comment what you guys think about this theory. I know I kind of got off on tangents and whatnot. That was with bullet points, too. I actually had a whole script and everything for this, and I still kind of got off on bullet points. But honestly, I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that this is a very interesting subject. That, mass exodus from the planet because the traveler makes more sense than the Hive and the Fallen that can be easily downed with modern, current weaponry. A lot of these kinetic auto rifles and stuff, they're not, overkill. Even Ada said it. The Black Armory had tech that was capable of dealing with the invasion. But yeah, just why don't you guys throw me a comment down there on what you think of all this, and subscribe. We do Destiny videos once a week right now. Doing a couple other things here and there, but usually do a lot of live streams. I'm trying my hand at videos here, so let me know how I did. This is pretty much about my second video I've ever put up on YouTube that's actually been a video and a recording, so let me know what I did. Full credit to Bungie Video Docs, Forbes Magazine, all the places that provided us images for this. I did pull all these off of the Destiny Wikipedia page. These are images that are freely available to pretty much everybody. However, I do not own the copyrights for them, and I do not claim the copyrights for them. They just were great visual aids. Hence the reason why we went back to live gameplay. However, I did want to go ahead and bring all this together and kind of point all this stuff out because I think it's something that we need to, really look at. What happened here? If we look at any of this, does it really make sense? So, like I said, guys, I'm Dragon. Thank you for coming out, checking out this video and this little theory I had here. I am going to go ahead and go back and get ready for the final week of the season for Seasonal Story. And we will get a live stream going on that probably around 9:30 or 10 o'clock. Another thing, radioactive freaking debris. But it's a spaceport, so whatever. But I will be back for that later on today. Thank you guys all for coming out again. I am Dragon. Remember to subscribe, and I will see you guys next time.